Well, welcome to Atlantic City. My name is Barry Shepley, and beside me, Renee Tomlin. Renee, those clouds look a little foreboding.
Yeah, we're having definitely some weather here in Atlantic City. It's been beautiful the past few days, but today we've got a bit more of some clouds and some waves out there. So we'll see if the rain holds off.
Well, I don't think the rain, I can feel drops right now. In fact, we've moved the race up by about 45 minutes. Get a chance to be able to maybe just sneak ahead of the worst part of the rain that is supposed to be coming over the afternoon. Well, there they are. They're not too far away. And the format is going to be a 300-meter swim. They'll head off the beach, beautiful beach, into some big surf. You can just see it in the backdrop. I was down there about 20 minutes ago, and there were 3.5 foot waves. So some of those athletes like Taylor Spivey, I think, are going to be very happy. Once they're out of the water, it's back up on the shore there they go. So it's going to be a total of 5 laps on the bike and then 4 laps on the run. And very short, 300-meter swim, roughly a 3-mile bike, and roughly a 1-mile run. And we'll just go down quickly. The Atlantic City waves with Kat Salazar in the water right now. The young Canadian hoping to be Olympian Desiree Ridniers for the Arizona King Snakes. Carolina Gliders. Chelsea Burns, very established athlete. Expect some big things from her. Jess Broderick will be on the Colorado Peaks. Caitlin Donner, the former U.S. collegiate champion, is on the Florida Sun. The Guadalajara Garlines, Cecilia Perez. Jazz Hedgeland from the Gold Coast Tritons. So Australia has a team here. San Diego Stingrays with Taylor Spivey, and the Canadians, the Toronto Freeze, have Carol Ann Roy. So those 9 athletes are out there getting churned around right now, and you can really see that the toughest job of the day might in fact actually be the lifeguards out there trying to keep track of everybody.
So I think now we're seeing some of the athletes come into shore, trying to catch some of those waves. Once it's already broken, it's really tough to get on top of it, but they're doing a tremendous job fighting through that whitewater.
5 minutes now, 5 minutes in, so that is a very long opening 300-meter swim, no question about it.
Yeah, and a long beach transition where if you're a speedy runner, you're going to want to use that to your advantage. So that looks like Jazz Hedgeland and Chelsea Burns coming in, putting their helmets on as fast as they can to get out onto their bike. This looks like it could potentially be a little pack forming.
Well, we are watching our athletes come back on the boardwalk. In fact, that is Taylor Spivey. It is a total of 5 laps, and there is no lap out rule on this format because the course is so short. It will not be unlikely to see athletes down a lap or so on the bike course. So it's their responsibility and their teammates to know that they've done the 5 laps. If they don't, they will be disqualified at the finish. Just over 7.5 minutes in. We're anticipating each athlete to go roughly 19 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. I think the conditions today are going to be quite challenging, so it maybe just add another 60 seconds. And there we've got our Australian athlete working very well together. So Jazz is in that second place, I think probably it looks like, with Chelsea Burns. Well, we've got a group of 4 or 5 that will be chasing Taylor Spivey as we take a look coming around that 180. So Mexico into that group. But it is the Australian who's doing much of the work right now, Jazz Hedgeland, pushing very hard.
Say that's 2 different energy systems, so you just, as an athlete, you have to have that self-awareness.
Taylor's wondering if she's done her 5th lap there. I could see her mouthing to the official, am I done?
You have to be really strong and to be able to engage your core in that soft sand, but you will have some relief on the boardwalk. There is a bit of bounce, like you mentioned earlier, Barry, so Taylor looks great. Looks pretty smooth heading out onto her run.
It's Desiree and Chelsea, so second and third.
And behind them is Jazz Hedgeland and I believe Caitlin Donner.
So the Florida Sun in a solid spot. Our top 5 just going by. Mexico is just dropping back a bit. That's Cecilia Perez in 6th spot. Our sponsor is actually activating inside Tito's Handmade Vodka from Texas. In fact, they are making a fundraiser all along today. And Chelsea continues with about a 1 meter gap on Desiree Riddier. So the 2nd and 3rd place women have pretty much stayed in that spot. My understanding is that they may have to take a small break at the end of the first leg. The swim boys out there are moving around so violently that they may in fact have to take a small gap. I'm not sure how they're going to manage that, but if we don't see people going right back in, that's in fact the reason why. So now it'll be interesting to see here whether they send them all off at once or they go off in a time gap. My thought process is that they will be trying to send them off individually, but we will see. So now we are waiting for the athletes to go back in. I think they are trying to send them in reverse order. And the first athlete that, there's two, so I'm wondering if one has already gone, because in my estimation that first athlete had a bit of a break with the San Diego Stingrays.
So you see Ben out there hurdling the waves. Yeah, it does look like there is an athlete.
Yeah, already out.
Already making his way through that white water.
And there's no question some skill set. You can see the diving under the waves. You definitely have to have a bit of open water skill to take full advantage here. So in fact, if you are just tuning in, this is now the second leg of the Major League Triathlon here in Atlantic City. The women went first. One team was disqualified. The Toronto Freeze did not get out of the water with these big waves, so they're out. We're down to 8 teams, and the swim boys came unadjusted. Well, the women were on the bike and run, so they actually stopped the men, readjusted, and what they've done is sent them back into the water with the gap of time that they were behind, and that's why you're now seeing men just running into the water on a kind of random basis. That's the gap that they would have been behind Taylor Spivey's record leg to start off the day, and it'll be Seth Ryder from the San Diego Stingrays who'll be going into the water as the first athlete, and we would anticipate, because he had maybe a 25-second gap and is a good swimmer, very likely he should be first out. Peaks down a minute, 22nd, 8th place, 4 minutes down. The Waves and Atlantic City Waves and the Toronto Freeze are out. So let's just kind of see what kind of a gap this young man has. He's an outstanding athlete. There's no question about it that Seth has the ability to hold that gap. He was 24 seconds up on the peaks as he was heading out, and that was Jason West who will be on the peaks.
Yeah, you're going to want to get into your shoes pretty quickly before you hit some of those 180s in order to maximize your power coming out. So looks like Seth's in his shoes.
Looks like Alexander Hinton, I think, right there. That is.
With Ben Canute right on his tail.
Right. So they are very close together.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked to arrive on site and get one of the Baco hats.
They've been a long-time sponsor of the sport. I think it's been about a quarter of a century making their technical wear, and Baco gear is the official gear of Major League Triathlon. You'll see athletes walking around. One of the things they're doing a bit different here in the circuit as well is time for the athletes to spend getting to know people in the city. So there is an ambassador program where each of the 9 teams have people who aren't necessarily racing, but they may be avid triathlon athletes in age group, or they may be a sponsor who's interested. Out of the shoes here, so we're coming to the start of the run. Now let's just kind of see what the gap was. It was 24 and a half, almost 25 seconds that Seth Ryder had on Ben Canute. So we'll see what that gap is when they come off. Remember, there's also preems for the fastest man, fastest woman of the day. So we'll just kind of see there what the gap of time is. But Seth will be able to get out there. No fear that he's got anybody near him on the transition zone. The format is 9 teams. One of the teams, unfortunately, today, the Toronto Freeze, are out of the race. They were not able to get their lead swimmer on the women's side out of the water zone on the early stages here. We'll see them going by us on the run. And Seth is moving very well. He's now just moving down off of the boardwalk into the beach area, and that is Ben Canute, one of 2 Olympians in our field today. Ryan Fisher's had a tremendous bike ride. He has moved the Australians up into 3rd spot. Ben Canute has done the Alcatraz race, and that is a lot of time on the sand for anybody who's ever done that before. I'm just going to get the gap time for Seth Ryder, who just went by us, so we'll see what the gap of time is back to Ben Canute. There's Ryan Fisher.
Off to Emma Jeffcoat, who is also a phenomenal ocean and open water swimmer. It's really just having kind of that awareness and comfort within the ocean or within big surf like this. Sometimes it's not necessarily the strongest person, but really just an awareness of how the water's moving, where the rips are, and just being able to power out to that first buoy. There's Emma Jeffcoat coming through in transition.
Now, we didn't see whether or not someone had come out ahead of her or whether or not she has just swam through. And it either could be a very likely possibility. Chelsea Sodaro went in with about a 26-second gap, but could you see Emma making up that kind of a time on her?
Absolutely. I think, you know, just getting out there, just getting out past that whitewater and past those breaks, it's absolutely possible. Here comes Lindsay Jordanek for the Carolina Gliders.
So they have had a tremendous swim as well. Lindsay has had a lot of experience racing all around the world, 33 years of age. Her 75-year-old dad has a black belt, and she says one of her inspirations. Her breakthrough race a couple years ago, she was 5th in Stockholm, and that kind of put her onto the map where she knew she was deserving of being up with the top athletes.
I think with that wind out there and the boards probably being a different surface, well, definitely being a different surface than what a lot of these athletes are used to. And if you take a look at that in person, that's a pretty narrow corner that they have to navigate. So you can't really go into that full speed. And with it being a pretty short turn from point to point, that's a lot of accelerating. It's tough on the legs, and sometimes it's easier to have your own space in order to kind of work within your own comfort zone.
Out of her cycling shoes, so she is coming off the bike to start. And again, they have a penalty format if you either dismount too late, if you don't put your helmet in the box, and so forth. There is a 10-second penalty and a penalty box. It has to be served by that person before they do the tag. And if anything, I would say her strength is her strength. It seems to me that having watched her, she's able to sustain that same effort. So longer, even better than shorter.
Yeah, Emma is a very powerful athlete. Impressive in the water, ferocious on the bike, and her run's really coming along as well. So she's definitely one to watch.
There they go. We'll see what the gap is. Talked about his first triathlon. His mother signed him up and had to buy him a pair of shoes the night before. He had an old bike. He was going to do it in a pair of skater board shoes, he said. So actually see if there was any way to pick up Tommy Zavaris out there.
I think we did just see him come through on screen. He's out past that white water, so he's likely making turn around that first buoy.
Well, he is a phenomenal swimmer.
You have Brandon here already through transition on his bike, heading into that first 180 with, I believe that's Tommy.
Wow, that's a big swim for Tommy Zavaris.
And Brandon.
Yeah, no, that is spectacular for both of those athletes as they come around. It'll be 5 laps on the bike and then out onto the run course. So we could have a good battle here.
But the race isn't over until it's over, and we've seen that so many times, and especially today in the different exchanges as well.
With this, look at that, with that moisture now, these guys got the worst part of the day. The anchor guys really are in a tough situation. Tommy up there moving well, and this is a guy who's had a few little visits to the hospital, both himself and with his wife, with Katie. So I know that you just need to think and be smart, and they're making good decisions here. You can watch, they really are slowing it down on those corners. So that's Brandon Copeland for the Australian team. There is a storm that is coming, we understand, like in the next 10 minutes with gale force winds. The humidity is approaching 90 plus, so it's not far away, and people looking at the big weather report here say that we can just get these guys off the bikes in the next 10 minutes, and there we go. So that's not a surprise. So Copeland down. Fortunately for him, he really was quite conservative going around there, and I don't think there'll be any massive damage, except to the chain possibly. He's got to have to put his chain back on, if that's the problem. Yeah, you look at his legs. He doesn't have his chain on. He doesn't realize it. Tommy Zavaris, he's questioning, am I done? Do I have another? Am I done? Always tell him, count how many, if you got any, how many fingers on your hand here. We'll see. He's definitely given up about 20 seconds there. If he loses the race by 3 revolutions going around the corner, we'll see. Tommy Zavaris off the bike first. And we'll see what the gap is back to Mr. Copeland. And the guy I would be most fearful of, Matt McElroy, who will be coming off here shortly. We'll just see. So Tommy Zavaris will go by. We will get an update when they run by us here, Renee, so we'll have a better visual. But first out onto the run course, Tommy Zavaris, his wife Katie Zavaris, the Olympian, I'm sure will be tuned in to watch and see how her husband's doing. Here comes Copeland. He's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25 seconds, and that probably could have been 40 had Tommy not been doing 360s. So
yeah.
that could be costly. Tommy is probably 300 meters ahead, so it's going to be hard pressed. He just went by us to start his second lap. The rain teeming down now, so kudos to the camera crew who are out there doing their very best to keep things going here today. Here he comes.
Tommy.
Yep. It has been a day of everything. They had to take down the gantry because it was going to blow down. But it is Tommy Zavaris making his way, and the Carolina Gliders will claim victory here today. What a terrific job as they come in across the line. Zavaris, Juranic, Canute, and Chelsea Burns. And not far behind, that is a solid day for the Gold Coast Tritons. Brandon Copeland, Emma Jeffcoat has to have had the fastest leg of the day. Ryan Fisher and Jazz Hedgeland coming in, and I think our bronze medal team won't be too far away with the Stingrays, McElroy, Sadaro, Seth Ryder, and Taylor Spivey coming in across the line. That'll be your podium. As you can kind of see Matt making his way here. This guy didn't give up either, and he might have the fastest run of the day. Well, that's it. It's going to be tough for these athletes. Our podium for the day as they make their way in across the line. Spectacular breakthrough with Tommy Zavaris on the anchor leg. The Carolina Gliders claiming gold medal here on the day. Our silver medalist from Australia, the Gold Coast Tritons, and our bronze medalist, the San Diego Stingrays. I'm Barry Shepley, and on behalf of all of the team, those hardworking people that have been out there in the rain, Renee Tomlin here as our co-host. We thank you very much. Look forward to talking and seeing with you in 2 weeks when we will be in Vail, Colorado. Otherwise, tune back in, and thank you for tuning in today.